Another thing I want to focus on is the realization that's happening about being able to eliminate batteries from the supply chain. Not in all cases. You know, I believe lithium-ion batteries and other battery chemistries have a very important part of today and the future. But I think that there are a lot of devices like IoT sensors, like small peripheral devices like remote controls or like mice or keyboards or earbuds, for example, that might be able to get by without having batteries in them. And I think we're starting to see a push towards, you know, much more environmental responsibility from large companies. I love the trend that I see from some companies that are really tying environmental responsibility to shareholder value. And there's this opportunity to use passive power. And so one of the areas where you can do that is with obviously NFC or inductive. I'm thinking about like a smart lock, or I'm thinking about powering a sensor through a wall. Another way you could do it is using RF to do very micro watts of power, not a lot of power, but you can do that over the distance of a couple feet potentially. So what are your thoughts on being able to remove batteries from the ecosystem in some of the areas you're most excited about doing this passive power delivery?
I think it's a time that's like finally come.
Yep.
You know, I think the whole idea of charging at large distances, RF at a distance, has kind of been overplayed and maybe got a bit of a bad rap because there's this expectation that I'm going to be walking around in my house charging my cell phone. You're not going to have watts of power moving around through the air. Just from a regulatory standpoint, governments won't let it happen just because it's too much power.
Right.
But the idea of to the the milliwatt range or microwatt range of being able to move power safely in over feet or multiple feet is very realistic.
Yep.
And as long as you have devices that are able to consume that, and you can have a device that's relatively close by, but doesn't have to be right on top of it.
Yep.
You can power up those devices without having batteries, almost similar to the NFC type of tap to pay, where there's no battery in the listener device, but it goes ahead and gets energized with enough RF energy over a close distance.
Yep.
You can do that with RF at a distance for IoT devices. So,
Yep.
and I think it's a technology whose time has really arrived.
I agree. I think about a couple examples in particular. I think about electronic shelf labels. So you go into your Whole Foods or your Jewel, or trying to think about non-regional grocery stores, but whatever the East Coast and West Coast grocery chains are, and you see that they have their electronic shelf labels with e-ink displays. The vast majority of those are powered now with batteries, and the grocery store needs to replace those batteries usually on an annual basis. So that's a lot of waste. It's also a lot of time to go through and replace those. Those e-ink displays don't take a lot to change. You could either have somebody or a robot just tap to change, and there doesn't need to be any power on board to change the display, and the e-ink will hold. Alternatively, you could have RF, wireless power that can send power and the data to make the change when there aren't people present. Or it could do it safely when people are present if you have it close enough. So there's a lot of different configurations to do it, but e-ink electronic shelf labels are a no-brainer for me on ways to benefit the environment and also integrate this. The other one I really am excited about are smart labels. So like for pharmaceutical products and for higher value retail items like makeup and medical diagnostic tests, things that you buy in CVS that might have those RFID coils on them today. I think you can make these labels much smarter with expiration dates, with temperature, humidity sensors in them, but they don't need batteries. It would be impossible to implement this if you needed batteries with the smart labels. But without that, you can do smart labels without the need for a physical battery or physical power reservoir on board. You can deliver the power passively from another area. So I think that we're not going to see like a major change in 2022 on this, but I do expect to see some actual adoption of some real life applications where they're using RF or NFC as a way of passively powering things where you don't need batteries anymore. And I think that's really exciting in starting to fulfill some of the promise of wireless charging.
Yeah, I think part of it is now that these technologies are becoming more known to people that are the productizers, and they're starting to understand and they're starting to see the potential there. So I think we're taking that next step in the evolutionary journey to getting products out in the marketplace with it.
Yep.
And I think it's getting close.
Yep, agree.